twigs me over my shoulder. He digs me out counting that satin doll. Baby, shall we go out?
All right, welcome to Ask or Tell Me Anything. I know I could have picked a song about how hot it is, or I could have picked a song about bombing Iran. I don't know if there are any. There probably are some songs about that actually from previous occasions. But no, I didn't want to do that. But it is Ask or Tell Me Anything, and you can call 888-720-9677. My name is Colin McEnroe. I will be your server. And have you been with us before? Because we do things a little bit differently here. For example, we don't bring you food. That would be a big departure right there. But yes, no, it's just there's no guests here or anything. There's nothing. It's just a void that you can fill. 888-720-WNPR. Ask or Tell Me Anything. And there are people who want to talk right away. So let's do that. Let's talk with people right away. We're going to start with Mike in Woodbury. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Colin. So this issue, I think, has become even more important since the events of the weekend, which is that David Hogg, who, the Parkland shooting survivor who entered politics and rose to become a co-chair of the Democratic National Committee, was recently ousted from that position because of the apostasy, apparently, of saying that we need younger candidates, we need fresh ideas, which seems somewhat obvious since the approval rating of the Democratic Party is at best in the 30s, and some polls have it in the 20s. And but no, the status quo is working fine, and we need to keep the people that are there in power. They shouldn't be challenged in primaries. And Schumer and Jeffries, the two leaders, did not demand that Trump go before Congress, before bring a vote to Congress before going to war with Iran, because they're cowards. We need people that have fresh ideas and are willing to fight. I don't get it.
Yeah, well, let me just say this. I mean, first of all, I feel your pain about this, and I don't think Ken Martin's going to be a particularly long-lasting Democratic National Chairman.
No.
He doesn't seem like he's got it together. I do, in terms of Hogg, look, I totally get his feelings and your feelings, and I agree with those feelings. I do think was in the wrong job to do that. I mean, for better or worse, the Democratic, not because he believed those things, but because his way of implementing those things was to try to stimulate primaries against sitting members of Congress. And, that's just sort of not something the DNC typically does. And I mean, typically there would have to be a member of Congress who, like an Anthony Weiner kind of member of Congress, somebody who really needed to be taken out, or who'd gone so rogue or so weird that they had to do something about it, and he wasn't going to step down voluntarily. But typically the DNC isn't in the business of finding people to primary incumbents. It's just kind of not what they do. I'm not saying that shouldn't happen. I think primaries are by and large pretty good, and I think the Democratic Party in particular needs them for exactly the reason that you're citing. But it's sort of, there are ways to do that. There are organizations that you can start. There are organizations that you can join that are freestanding, existing, political action groups that do that kind of thing. The Democratic National Committee tends not to do that thing. So I just think he was trying to make the job into something that it's not. I'm not too surprised that they showed him the door. But your thoughts?
Right. Well, David Brooks had a column a few weeks ago in the New York Times where he said the Democratic Party needs to completely reinvent the way Trump reinvented the Republican Party. It's just working. I mean, we cannot fall back on the old saws of DEI and all this stuff that's just people don't like. And I think maybe the DNC just needs to be either reinvented or shut down. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, look, I think the party does need to reinvent itself. I'm also a little bit cautious about the second part of that sentence, the way Trump did with the Republicans, because that's
Well,
now a total cult of personality party. I'm not even sure how the party will function when Trump is either gone or dead or whatever. I mean, the entire existence of people in the party. I mean, it's kind of the existential test of any kind of official in the Republican Party now is his willingness to capitulate to Trump. And the people who don't really stand out. Even this time around, there are a few members of Congress who said, you really shouldn't drop that bomb without checking in with us. But by and large, they just there's only one real question: do you support the president? If you don't, then you are of no significance within the party. I don't think you can run a party that way for very long. I think this is a kind of short-term way to. But look, the Democrats, they are ultimately divided kind of along the lines of, you got Bernie and AOC leading a kind of a progressive movement. You've got people like Chris Murphy who are kind of leading a resistance movement. And then you've got sort of the older guard, and they're just trying to keep the churn of Democratic Party principles going. But yeah, I mean, look, they lost unions in the last cycle.
yeah.
I mean, none of those messages all by itself is going to be enough. They are going to have to find a message that's really much. The one thing that Trump did successfully, even though I don't think ultimately he meant it or will ever do it. But, he basically said, I know you're unhappy with your lives right now, and I'm going to do something about that. I know that you feel as though things aren't as good as they used to be. I know that you feel as though you're paying too much for certain things. I am going to fix that. That's what I'm here to do. Now, I don't really think that's what he's here to do, but at least not for Joe and Josephine Average. But he managed to persuade an awful lot of Joe and Josephine Average that that's what he was here to do. And then he also just persuaded a bunch of young men in their 20s that he was kind of cool, for a 78, now 79-year-old guy. It's just kind of cool. It kind of does whatever he wants, says whatever pops into his head. Kind of like that. Works well on a podcast. So I don't know that the Democrats can extract a game plan from all that. But I do agree that, I mean, they can't go on. And yeah, they are just barely more popular. I mean, in terms of approval rating, they're just a little bit ahead of measles right now. So they need to do better. All right. Well, let's go to Marissa just because it's going to build on what we just talked about. Hi, Marissa.
Hi. So, as I said, I thought the president isn't he supposed to ask permission, not permission, but talk to the Congress about dropping bombs.
Well, I mean,
Am I wrong?
you're not wrong. I mean, on the other hand, presidents do this. I mean, Trump didn't make this. This is one that Trump didn't make up. Presidents from
Yeah.
both parties have, when it has suited them, launched missiles and bombed. And I mean, the real question, I think, is this? And now we have a counterattack against U.S. deployment in Qatar. So is this the beginning of a war?
Yeah.
Because I mean, really, if you just lined up all the presidents and told the ones who had never ordered a bombing of a foreign country to step backwards, nobody would step backwards. I mean, they pretty much. Remember when Clinton was really going through bad stuff with Monica, and then they launched. Where did that one go? They bombed a pharmaceutical plant somewhere. Was it in Sudan? It might have been, but just like
That's true.
get people talking about something else.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
not unprecedented. But yes,
yeah.
if this is the beginning of a war, and we now have a counterattack, and I mean Trump was doing something that that Netanyahu had asked a series of presidents to do, including
Yeah.
the previous iteration of Trump, and nobody's wanted to do it so far because it does feel a little bit more like you're beginning a war or you're joining Israel in its war with Iran. And
I just want to say
yeah,
I just want to say something from what's going on right now. I work with people, and I am absolutely appalled at the fact that how are you today? Oh, just fine. Well, their hair should be on fire with what is going on. I think one of the biggest threats right now is the absolute rank ignorance of people. What they do, they look at. I don't know what they're thinking, but I am an immigrant myself. and I've been in this country since 1964, and I do not recognize this country anymore.
Yeah, I don't. I mean,
I
I
don't.
totally know what you're saying, and I share that feeling in a way that makes my spine tingle in a very unpleasant way. But I think another bigger part of the problem is, and maybe one reason people's hair is not on fire, is that people are now able to assemble their own personalized, curated versions of reality. There was a time where, you know, I mean, at the time of your arrival in this country and for several decades to follow, you know, I mean, everybody kind of read the same news stories, watched the same news programs. There was kind of a news monoculture with some diversity built into it. But now, because of social media, because, I mean, you can sort of just never encounter not only an opinion, but a set of facts that are troubling to you. Because if you just watch the stuff that reaffirms your own prejudices, whatever they are, you'll just be told, you know, you'll be told kind of what makes you comforted to hear. So, and I think that's one of the reasons you're not seeing the kinds of reactions that you might hope for.
Yeah, people. It's like people are sleepwalking into an absolute. Uh, you know, he's an autocrat. He's a fascist. They're sleeping through it. That's what's so upsetting.
Yes.
That I'm a citizen now. I'm a naturalized citizen. But if I'm caught in a protest, you know, I could be sent back.
Hmm. I mean,
Wait, it puts the fear. It's the fear that it puts the chill
yes.
into free speech.
Yep.
The chill.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I totally I sympathize with everything that you're saying right now. First of all, it must be so scary and frustrating having done this thing, having come here, having become a naturalized
Yes.
citizen,
This is
having
it,
attained that
it is
kind of legitimacy, and to feel as though
it
it could
is
be snatched away from you just on a whim
it
must
is
be,
a wonderful country.
yeah.
We didn't come here because we were afraid of being murdered. We came here for reasons like we wanted a better life.
Hmm.
But I'm not upset with people that are escaping being fear with the fear of being murdered.
Hmm.
I sympathize with them,
Yeah.
and this is immigrants are responsible for what is going on with this wonderful different foods. I mean, if it wasn't for immigrants, Americans would still be eating peanut butter and Jello.
Hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right, and the Irish
It's
immigrants
just
didn't
that,
help at all because they didn't have any interesting cuisine. But no, I totally understand you.
that's
The
right.
the rich tapestry of life in this country is the product of the so-called melting pot. But so, Marissa, thank you so much for your call today. Thanks for chatting. We're gonna, I should say, it's Ask or Tell Me Anything. So the number is 888-720-9677. That's 888-720-WNPR. And let me also remind you of the rules. Then we're going to go to Catherine in New London. The rules are that there are no rules. You can bring up anything you want. It doesn't have to be something that's in the news. It could be a philosophical question, a life issue. One of our more memorable episodes embroiled itself, or perhaps engrilled or emboiled itself for some time with the question of whether or not a hot dog is a sandwich. So, obviously there are very important things to going on in the world. And so we should probably talk somewhat about them, as we already have. But you are allowed to bring up things from the past, whatever. No, I'll tell you later about this. I want to get to Catherine. She's been waiting very patiently, or perhaps very impatiently. But here is Catherine in New London. Hi.
Hi, Colin. I have been waiting patiently. Yes. Can you hear me, Colin?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, that's lovely. So first of all, Marissa, I'm also a naturalized citizen. And in this turmoil, I went and looked at my citizenship, and it says that I was born in the United Kingdom. So I thought, well, if they send me back, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that wasn't what I was calling for. Two things. Substack has all the great people now, and Jonathan Last on the Bulwark
Mm-hmm.
did the most fabulous rundown of everything that's going on. If anyone wants clarity, I suggest they read his post on all of the events that have been occurring.
I should say, just
And
by way of shameless self-promotion, we are in the midst of we're working on an episode that'll probably run not anytime this week, but perhaps the following week or the week after. We're about the whole medium of Substack, and
Oh,
what it has
super,
become. So
super.
stay tuned for that. Anyway,
Yeah.
continue with your thoughts.
All the newspaper people and media people are there now. But anyway, yes, my thought was we're having another protest on July 17th. It's called a National Day of Action, and it's in honor of the late, great, marvelous John Lewis.
Well, that's first of all wonderful, and nobody deserves it more. I mean, I have a little concern here that if you have too many national days of action, after a while they start to become familiar, and familiarity either breeds contempt or at least kind of indifference. These things need to be probably spaced out a little bit more. I mean, if you want, millions of people to participate the way they did on No Kings. So I don't know. I'm not in charge of these things, but I'm just telling you, I worry sometimes that the people who want to protest may be watering down the supply a little bit.
Well, the last one was the 14th or something. Anyway, it's a month
Yeah.
between. I think that's enough time, Colin.
Okay. Well, I'm not in charge of these things, so I defer to you. So anyway, yeah, July 17th will be another
Yeah,
national.
I
day
don't
of
know
protest.
all the different, but just go online. Everything's online nowadays.
Everything is online now, including Substack. All right, everything is online now these days. All right, so I should say before we take. Oh no, let's just do that. This is an interesting one. This is actually a very interesting one because, in fact, we do have a primary happening in New York City tomorrow. So here's Angelo in Hamden with a call and a question and a comment. Hi.
Hello, Colin. Good afternoon. I just wanted to ask you about Zoran Mamdani, the progressive Democrat running for mayor in New York City. The guy's on fire. They've got record turnout for the primary today, and he's really quite a brilliant orator. I mean, he speaks very well.
Yeah, at first when he was running, and I listened to WNYC, which has been covering this kind of round the clock for weeks and weeks now. I thought they were saying that Sauron was running. I was thinking, well, that's a bad idea. We already have Sauron is already our president. That's before I realized what his first name really is, Zoran. You hear, I think this is an interesting test case, and I'm going to kind of be a little bit of a wiffle ball here and just say that I think this is an interesting test case. I think his policies, his ideas are certainly more in the kind of Bernie AOC wing of things, but even stuff that, free buses and stuff like that, stuff that you don't really hear people talk about very often. And I don't know how many of them would actually be workable if you were a mayor, how many of them you could ever get to. But I think the election in November is going to be a really, really interesting election. I assume we're looking at a four-way election because Adams has a line to run on. And then Curtis Sliwa, with whom I have some personal experience, will be the Republican nominee. And then you'll have, whoever wins the primary, you'll have that person will obviously get the Democratic ballot line. And you almost certainly, one of these people will manage to get a fourth ballot line. And that's a really hard election to predict. But if he were to win, it would be a really interesting laboratory, a very expensive laboratory, to watch somebody try to govern using these ideas that are, I think, so far more progressive than what you typically hear out of the Democratic Party. So, and I feel like the risk is that some of his ideas will strike the rest of America as so radical that they might look at that and go, well, we better watch out for these Democrats because look at the stuff that they do. And I'm not sure how this is going to play in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, all those places we tend to worry about. But yeah, it's been exciting to watch somebody get people excited.
But he doesn't have much administrative experience.
Yeah.
I wonder how he's going to do because, the mayor's office, the mayor's job is really a sort of nuts and bolts administration of a city. So I don't know, but he's very inspired and he sounds good.
Yeah.
Another issue I wanted to ask you about, because you were talking about Trump and Trump voters.
Mhm.
If you look at the income distribution statistics, most recently in the United States, the top 20% of wage earners earn a little over 50% of all the income generated by the U.S. economy in a given year. If you add the second quintile and you look at the top 40% of wage earners, it comes up to 75% of all the income is going to the top 40% of wage earners. And that means that the bottom 60% are receiving 25% of all the income generated by the economy in a given year.
Mhm.
In a recent year. Now, I'll bet you that those bottom 60%, they're probably voting for Trump. And the question is, what is Trump going to do to improve their income situation, to improve their economic situation? The Trump administration has done nothing to address the issue of economic inequality. Obviously, they don't even bring it up because they tend to favor billionaires. But I think this economic inequality is having a substantial impact on voters' preferences. And at the end of the day, people are voting, because they're mad, because they're not happy about their economic situation. But at the same time, they don't understand that the alternative they're voting for is, even though, he promises big changes, is not going to change their household economic condition.
Yeah, I think this ties in a little bit to the first call we had today about the DNC and David Hogg and Ken Martin and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, it's not like the old days. It's not like the 60s, where John Bailey really kind of did run the Democratic Party or close to it. It's nothing like that. But the real question is, next year, will Democrats, particularly Democrats going after the seats of incumbent senators and members of Congress, will they be successful at making this the issue? And to do that, they have to do two things. One of them is they have to say, are you better off now than you were 2 years ago?
Right.
Did any of these problems get solved? Any of the problems that you were, did they get solved? But that's only the first question. And the second thing isn't a question, it's a statement. Or maybe the second thing is a question, what is it you really want done? And then finally, and this is kind of the Ezra Klein abundance argument, here's how I plan to address these questions. And it's not a posture like you might have heard in the 2024 cycle. I really do have a plan. Here's what the plan is. Here's what we would do about the cost of housing, about your taxes, about the cost of education, about the cost of healthcare, the things that are really bothering you and worrying you. Here's my plan. And if they do that, we'll find out a lot in 2026. I mean, we'll find out, first of all, whether they've heard you, Angelo, whether they understand that as the bottom 60%, there's not much of a plan to change things right now, and maybe no plan at all. But so far Trump has been very successful at getting that kind of person to think that he's in their corner, and maybe he can keep doing it. Anyway, fascinating call. I got to just move on here. I think what I got to do is go to a break, but we got Mike and we got Michael. We have Mikey. We got Mikey Mike. Everybody is on the phone lines right now is named Mike, except somebody named Frank. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back.
Hey, you're always trying to prove something. Who is it all for? If not be you, what are you doing? You're covered in paint. Your clothes and your shoes don't fit. Don't make yourself small. Oh, no one. Ask my mommy. I was born in this body. I was born in this world. I was born in this body. I was born in this body. Ask my mommy. I was born in this body.
Support for Connecticut Public Radio comes from Oak Hill, Connecticut's largest disability services provider. They're hiring kind, caring people statewide to work in community and education programs. Find your next job at oakhillct.org.
Hello, my name is Sean Ramasvaram.
And I'm Noel King.
We make a sometimes funny, sometimes serious daily news show. It's called Today Explained. It's from Vox.
We deliver the context you need to get your head around the news.
All the news, political, art, tech, economy, environment.
And if you don't like it, you get your money back. Just kidding. It's free. It's Today Explained.
This afternoon at 3:30. Hey parents, you and your kids will love our Learning Snacks newsletter.
Get fresh ideas from PBS Kids, the source you trust for engaging educational media. Sign up at ctpublic.org/newsletter.
When guests on Audacious say that they like our questions, it is a huge compliment, and comedian Mark Sweet said it so much, we made a montage.
That's a fascinating question. Oh, I've never been asked that question before. Wow, another amazing question, yes. This is the deep interview. I've never gone this deep before. Wow, these are tremendous questions. Boy, you're smart. You are the right person for the job.
That's Audacious. Saturday mornings at 10.
Look what you're doing to me. I'm utterly at your whim. All of my defenses down. Your camera looks through me with its X-ray vision. All systems run aground. All I can manage to push from my lips is a stream of absurdity. Every word I intended to speak winds up locked in a circuitry. They tell me no way to control it. It's totally automatic whenever you're around. I'm walking blindfolded, completely automatic.
No disrespect at all to the Pointer Sisters, but it's fun when there's kind of a cover like that kind of takes a pretty familiar song, and I don't know. I think they're doing something interesting with that. Anyway, making it more techno kind of. All right, it's Ask or Tell Me Anything. The number is 888-720-9677, 888-720-WNPR. We got all kinds of people named Mike and Michael, and we got a Frank. I'm going to try to break it up a little bit. I'll start with a Michael, then I'll go to a Frank, just so it doesn't get too Mikey, really. You know, I don't want it to get too Mikey. All right, so here's Michael in Greenwich. Hi.
Hi. In keeping with the spirit of the show, I would like to start with a digression and just say that the name Michael is like the number one name in the country from like 1965 until 1992.
And then what happened? I think when Mike Connors died, you know, he was Mannix. I just feel like it just took the wind out of the whole name, really.
Right. That could be it. And then, like, I think Ryans took over or something. But anyways, I'm calling about Governor Lamont today announced that he was going to veto HB 5002, which is the housing omnibus bill that was going to radically change the way that we build housing in Connecticut. And I just wanted to say that I'm very disappointed in him that he did that. And it's a real shame. And I personally think that this is his reelection announcement, and that's the only reason he did it.
Okay, so let me just, first of all, I share your sentiments, at least at the level of sentiment. And I bet when you're hanging around in Greenwich, you don't find that many people who join in with you.
It's lonely down here.
Yeah, that would be my guess. I have some friends up in New Canaan who are going through some stuff about that. So I have a couple of reactions. One of them is, it's that and the striking workers bill. And I like how come he just says, I'm going to veto. Why does he just veto them? It's not that hard. That's the whole thing. Like, as soon as I get some time and I find a pen, as soon as my chief of staff gets back from Staples, I'm going to veto. I say, what's that all about? Just veto it. But so I think the other thing is with the housing thing. So we know that a lot of this is about local control. I mean, Connecticut's disease, and it is a permanent and probably incurable disease, is that notion that it is 169 separate principalities, and each one of those principalities is entitled to its own set of neuroses and ideas about how things should be, and the main thing that a lot of those principalities want to do is pull up the ladder. And so local control is always going to be a huge problem, both in terms of the minimums, the minimum targets for affordable housing, but even stuff like, parking requirements and stuff like that. I mean, it's hard to do this in Connecticut. It's way harder here than it is in a lot of places. Again, it's hard to do a lot of things because we're this little tiny state with 169 different, municipalities. Right. And so now Ned, I think his comment was, it's if it becomes us versus them, it's not good. And I mean, I think that's more Ned being Ned. Look, I think Ned's going to run. I think he made it pretty clear he's going to run again. But that's also just Ned being Ned. I mean, Ned is, as I have actually said it in print, I don't even know what Lamontism would be exactly as a political philosophy. But it certainly doesn't involve getting into pissing contests with rich suburbanites, because that's like the milieu he comes from. So I don't know. I think he would probably veto this even if he weren't running again. But
I mean, so I have to push back a little bit, because I know that people from his staff were in the drafting of the bill.
Mm-hmm.
He was very involved. This is not like it came out of left field at him. This is the third time around or something for this bill. And so, he made it very clear from the beginning that, he was involved in the bill. He was part of the drafting of the bill. He was part of the revisions and the amendment process. He had people in the room who were doing the work. And so for him at sort of the last minute like this to say, I don't know that there's enough, and he must have gotten, like you say, the right pushback from the richest people who,
Yes. These are,
don't want that.
Ned has a whole bunch of people who can get him on the phone, and then we know who those people are or what kind of person that is. And, the one thing that I would say to join in with you is, if you're going to veto something like this, you damn well better explain what it is you do want to do about it. Because I don't think vetoing it and saying, well, it's us versus them, I don't think that's enough. Look, Connecticut has a huge problem about housing. It's a moral problem at a certain level, just in terms of the number of people who don't have housing. It's an ethical problem in the sense, and a practical problem in the sense that if you're like a town worker in Darien or something, you probably can't live in the town that you work in. It's not a radical idea to say, oh, people ought to be able to live, pretty close to where they work. But I mean, a lot of these places are prohibitively expensive for the people who have meaningful jobs there, jobs that the residents depend on or at least want to have filled. So at that level, it's impractical and kind of unethical. But then at the other level that Ned should vibe with a little bit more, it's very hard to attract businesses here because there's nowhere for employees to live. They're just there's a housing shortage.
That's what GE said when they left. They were like, we can't find people that will live here and work here and fill these jobs, so we're going to Boston.
So like I get that his name isn't Ned Ocasio-Cortez. I get that.
Right.
But at the level of Ned Lamont, that should have his attention. That in fact businesses feel like they can't function here because there's not enough places for their potential employees to live, and people who are interested in getting good educations at a lot of our fine colleges, or they just leave partly because there's no livable life for them here. And if there's anything a governor should do, it's to address that. And so, if he and his staff don't come back real fast with a counter proposal that they would back the next session, then I say a pox on you, Ned.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. And I just want to say that it's not a left-right issue.
No, I would agree too.
Local control is not about local because I don't have control over what I can build.
Right.
It's, a bunch of busybodies who don't have anything better to do with their time than determine what, it's basically an HOA on steroids.
Right. Rich Democrats can be real jerks about this too. All right. So here we go. Let's see. I think I should do Frank next. I'm trying to diversify. But here's Frank calling from, I believe, Norwich. Hi, Frank.
How are you?
I am fine.
Good. I just want to mention a couple things, and you can throw some comments.
Yeah.
Before I do, I listen to NPR a lot. I'm a sustaining member, and I love all the shows. So that's so here's the three items.
You're kind of breaking up.
Most people.
Is there anything you could do, like maybe move 2 feet to your left or right or something? Your phone's breaking up a little bit.
What's that?
Your phone was breaking up a little bit there. Try again.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So I have 3 items, and you can just sort of wing the comments, I guess. The first one is, why is it sort of common that when somebody says thank you, we don't really hear your welcomes very often anymore? It's just like a thank you and then a thank you. It's kind of weird. The second one is when there's interviews, oftentimes, a person will say, oh, that's a really great question. I think that's kind of funny to hear when somebody's being interviewed. Hopefully the questions are all good. And the third thing is, I now have gotten to the point where I am starting to time how long it takes someone to mention or hawk the book that they're doing.
Yeah. Okay. I can address all of this. Yeah, I think, maybe you're welcome is first of all, I don't think people have entirely stopped saying it. Although I do, whenever there's a conversation like this, I flash back to the ending of No Country for Old Men, where Tommy Lee Jones and some other sheriff are talking about the decline of everything and how come, people are just getting killed right and left over drugs all over southern Texas or wherever they are. And one of them goes, well, the minute people stop young people started stop saying please and thank you and sir and ma'am, you just knew it was going to be the end. So, but, I think what people have decided to do, without realizing that they decided to do it, is kind of adopt more of a Donata approach to this, right? It's kind of like, rather than saying you're welcome, they go, no problem, or something like that. Yeah, that's nothing. Sure, fine, whatever. And I think that's okay. It's like if it's done in a genial manner, I think that's the key.
I also think maybe they're combining and shorting. So instead of, thank you, oh, you're welcome, and thank you for having me on the show, they're just throwing a double thank you in there quick.
So, no, to your next point, first of all, if you want to get a kind of an interesting taste of that in a very, very kind of a more of a pressurized way, on the New York Times, I guess it's up on the Daily's feed, if you know their podcast, The Daily, but it's actually a separate kind of thing. I think it's called The Interview or something like that. So David Marchese, who's a really, really, really good interviewer, he's kind of the New York Times #1 sort of celebrity Q&A kind of guy, interviewed this podcaster, Andrew Schultz, who became a bigger and bigger. He's a comedian with a podcast, but then he's got millions of followers, and he became a bigger force in the last few political cycles. And Trump appeared on his show, but Harris wouldn't, and all this stuff. And he's a very smart, agile guy, and he's very tough to interview. You can just see he makes it hard just to entertain himself. He makes himself hard to interview. But he also does this thing, like Marchese will be partway through his question, and you'll hear Schultz say, just loud enough to have the mic pick it up, good question. Like he's really interested in what a good question is or not, and yeah, I mean, look, I ask people questions for a living partly, and it's always kind of, if a Robert McFarlane kind of guest or something goes, well, that's a really good question. You do feel good. You feel, and for me, what it means is, because we do a lot of homework before we interview somebody, my producers and I. And so when you ask somebody a question and they say that, and it's a smart person who, isn't just trying to just oil things up for themselves, you think, okay, so yeah, we thought this through and we thought of a question to ask him that he hasn't already thought of. Sure. And that's a really good feeling. And now people plug in their books. Yeah, so there's all different kinds of guests, and there are some guests who are really, like, was it Andre Gregory? I think Betcha Pence remembers. Like, I had Andre Gregory on. And I was pretty excited to have Andre Gregory on. He's the, my dinner with Andre. He's that guy, and we had a really good conversation. But he really did feel the need, like, like every 7 minutes or so, he had to say the title of his book. And I think we had him on for the whole show. So he said the title of his book a lot of times. And
I get it. Like usually someone's an expert and they've done a book on it, or, something really current. I get that. But it just, sometimes it seems like they are just hawking their book.
Yeah. Well, no, and sometimes they have a publicist sitting right next to them too. If they're not in the studio with you, who's going to say the name of the book again? But it really, you start to feel a little dirty, a little soiled when people do that too much. All right. So, well, let me just do this one real fast, and then I'll move back to, I still have a mic. I have a mic that I have to talk to, but I'm going to talk to a Mark first, a Mark from Naugatuck. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Colin, how you doing?
Fine.
I was just wondering what your hot take was on the Iran attacking our U.S. bases in Qatar. I was just found out about it. My wife told me, and it seemed like it was not something I was expecting. And it seems to be a deliberate provocation, and I can't fathom what their end game could possibly be.
Well, so this happened really right around the time I was going on the air today. However, I have dedicated people who have been feeding me information while I've been on the air. Our understanding of it at this point is that they gave plenty of warning. Their goal was not to kill a lot of people. Their goal was to kind of make a statement. But I mean, apparently the base was evacuated. There's no human casualties or injuries that anybody knows about so far. They can't do nothing, right?
Right.
You're running a country. The country just got bombed by one of the world's big superpowers. You can't do nothing. You have to do something. And this seems like the kind of the minimum amount of something, as opposed to the medium or maximum amount of something. And the real question is sort of now what happens? I mean, the minute this all happened on Saturday at 5 p.m., we started a game of now what? That's the name of the game. It's now what? Well, the next now what? Well, okay, so they attacked some stuff in Qatar. Now what? And hopefully at some point somebody, and maybe like right now somebody says, okay, we're going to just sort of level off right here, and nobody's going to do anything to anybody else for a while, because we don't want to have a war, and there's no real definition of a war. It's not like, if you do these 6 things, you're at war. But this is getting closer and closer. Every time there's, a retaliation, you're closer and closer to a war. So I'm hoping, Iran seemed to be sending the sign, okay, we don't want to kill a lot of people, but we don't want to look like we're just pushovers. So we did the minimum, and maybe that'll get things to stop. The other problem, of course, is that there's at minimum 3 players in all of this. There's Iran and its leadership, there's the United States and its leadership, and then there's Israel and its leadership. And, Netanyahu, by some arguments, Netanyahu needed the U.S. to get involved because he didn't really have the capacity to do anything more than what he had already done. He kind of started something he couldn't finish. And presumably getting to use our MOPS was an opportunity to, it was a way to let him say, okay, so maybe we've stopped now. But a lot of it does depend on what Netanyahu does next, whether he feels like a sufficient blow has been dealt. Anyway, I got to go to a break here. Thank you so much for your excellent phone call. Call anytime, Mark. When we get back, we have Barbara, we have Mike, we have other people, possibly 888-720-9677. Here we go.
If I could, I would have years ago. And I know it'll be rough at night when I can't feel you by my side. Even though I know it's not right, it's not wrong, I have to keep myself from holding on. So I try to feel my pain.
Support for Connecticut Public Radio comes from you, our members, and from St. Francis Hospital. Their emergency department sees all of you, not just your emergency. To see current wait times, visit trinityhealthofne.org/ER.
I'm Peter O'Dowd. After an ALS diagnosis, Zac Brown Band founding member John Driscoll Hopkins has a new song. He wrote it for his children.
Just going through all the thoughts in my head about the things that I could miss out on if this thing takes me out.
That's next time on Here and Now.
Today is the only day that
Join us this afternoon at 2. Support comes from Kennedy & Perkins Opticians, offering the latest in lens technology and exclusive eyewear collections. Locally owned and family operated since 1946 with 6 New Haven County locations. KennedyandPerkins.com.
Your support fuels the journalism that helps make sense of what's happening in Connecticut and how it links to the world.
Connecticut Public is a place where we can come together and have this kind of common dialogue about our cities and towns, our values, and kind of what place we live in together.
If you have the same access to the fact-based, unbiased information that everyone else has, no matter where you come from, you have a chance.
Give now at ctpublic.org/donate.
And we are back. Time to say some thank yous. We're going to say thank you, first of all, to our technical producer. And that is the Jedi Master. Gina Amatruda is our technical producer today. Dylan Ray is getting some very, very well-earned rest and recreation. Jonathan McPants is producing this episode. Meg Fitz is on phones. If there's anybody that I've left out, type their name on Slack to me right now. But thanks to everybody who's helping out today. And we are going to go back to the phones in just a second. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I have to announce, but I don't think there is. So I can just zoom back over here, and we can get started with. Well, Mike's been waiting a long time, but Barbara, don't go away. I want to talk to you, Barbara. But Mike from Cromwell, go ahead. You have the floor.
Oh, hey, thanks, Cromwell. I'm calling. By the way, I was almost a Matthew. But I am a Mike.
Okay.
But don't ever call me Mikey. So the two main things I want to talk about. One is that as approaching my 70th year, I feel closer to a nuclear holocaust now than I think I ever did in my life. I mean, I remember the practicing hiding under chairs in the 60s, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and all that. And that had somewhat of an impact on me. But right now, I just, I don't want to be an alarmist, overly speaking, but it's just not feeling really good right now. But I think along with it, I have the feeling that people talk. We're not talking enough with each other. We're not debating politics as much as we should be. I think we're told not to, and with family and friends and so on and so forth. And I think a lot of us avoid it because we're afraid of what I might not have a brother anymore or something like that. But people talking at each other more, we got to be talking with each other. And how do we do that?
I think that there's not a lot of good modeling of that going on. First of all, to your first point, I just checked the doomsday clock. We're 89 seconds to midnight, so you are correct to be worried. I mean, one of my models on all this is Ezra Klein. I think Ezra Klein does a really, really good job of talking to people who have very, very different points of view and doing it in a respectful way without giving so much ground as to render his own views meaningless. And I don't think we do it very well on this show. It was something we talked about a lot in meetings. I would like to get more people on who don't believe exactly what I believe, and be able to have the kind of conversations that Ezra and certain other people, he's not the only one, but I think he does it the best of anybody that I hear, to do that, because we've got to learn to do that. We've got to learn to talk to one another in a civil way and not have it be scary, not have it turn into what if I don't have a brother anymore after this. But thanks for your call, Mike. And we're going to go to Barbara. I just don't want to run out of time here. So, hi, Barbara. You have the floor.
Hi, Colin. How you doing?
I am just fine.
Well, that's good. I've been a fan for a long time, since I was in, I don't know, college, I guess. You were probably at Yale and I was at UConn, but,
And you were already a fan of me when I was still in college? That's really impressive, because I was not doing anything very interesting, as my college friends can tell you.
No, you used to have a column in the Current that was hilarious, and then I started listening to you on the radio when I'm in the car and stuff like that. But I just want to let you know, we're all getting older. One of these days, I hope I can call back and have something actual to say. But anyway.
Well, this is good. This is sort of a practice run, This was just sort of like, you're just sort of trying this. We're talking back and forth, and you're just making sure it's a comfortable experience. And then when there's something really kind of burning inside you that needs to get out, something you really need to talk to me about, I hope you will call back.
I certainly will.
Right.
And all the best to you. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. So I just want quickly, we have a couple of minutes left, and I don't have any calls left. So it's an opportunity to say a couple of things. First of all, one thing that so I've been kind of burning up some vacation time because it's the end of the fiscal year and I didn't take much. And I also didn't haven't really gone anywhere, but I've tried to do a lot of stuff. And we're almost reminded, we think Connecticut is this place where there's nothing to do. I don't know. In the space of just a few days, I saw Jacques Lamar's excellent play at Playhouse on Park in West Hartford. I saw the new Hartford Stage Company play. I went to see the Hartford Athletic. This is just Hartford, and the rest of you live in other really interesting places. The Hartford Athletic, which is our relatively new professional soccer team, I saw them play. Make sure nobody wants to be out right now. It's 152 degrees. But when it's no longer like the surface temperature of the sun, make sure you get out and do stuff and support arts organizations and support people who do things like start new professional soccer teams and stuff like that. Make sure that you live the way you want to live in the place that you live in. And that sounds like a garbled statement. But what I mean is, I talk to so many people who just live in Connecticut and they just kind of claim to hate it. It's like there's nothing to do here. And that's nonsense. If you made an effort to do every single possible interesting thing that you could do for the rest of the summer within, let's say, 20 miles of where you live, you'd be pretty busy. And there's a lot of stuff going on. So make sure you do that. And then the other thing I'll just quickly say, my email address is Colin, COLIN, @ctpublic.org. I'm always happy to hear from you folks if you have ideas for other shows or, as Mike suggested, maybe we need to do some shows where we do a better job of being in dialogue with people who are more conservative than I am, for example, things like that. But yeah, Colin @ctpublic.org. Whatever it is, or if there's something I do that really annoys you, join the club, send an email. We're going to bring the music up now and say goodbye. And you're going to hear some of our older shows for the rest of the week. I will be back to do Ask or Tell Me Anything again next Tuesday. I believe that's July 2nd. Don't hold me to that. But next Tuesday, we will do another version of Ask or Tell Me Anything.
The number you have reached has been disconnected.